There comes a moment in every person's life where silence is no longer an absence of words, but a tactical fortification of the soul. As we age, we realize that access to our mind is a privilege, not a birthright. Marcus Aurelius warned us that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Protect the palate or become the stain. What he didn't need to explain was that the wrong people are intentional toxins. Today, we expose the 4 final warnings, the signals that it is time to walk away completely. No guilt, no looking back. This isn't born out of petty anger. It's about the brutal discipline that a strong inner world demands. When your peace is under siege, you do not negotiate with the invaders. You simply seal the gates. Access is a weapon in the wrong hands. Weld the door shut. Now, sign 1. Mental parasites. Some individuals don't enter your life to walk beside you. They come to feast on your vital energy. Today, we call them energy parasites. The Stoics identified them as the disturbers of the inner citadel. Epictetus taught with a cold, sharp edge. If they harm your tranquility, they have no place in your circle. Mercy to the wolf is cruelty to the sheep. Notice the undeniable pattern. Every time they exit the room, you feel mentally exhausted, as if your clarity has been traded for a heavy, suffocating fog. Your focus weakens, and your mood collapses under the weight of their chaos. This isn't just drama. It is a psychological battlefield where you are the only one losing blood. If you find yourself constantly needing to recover after a conversation, you aren't in a partnership. You are in a state of occupation. A Stoic understands that the mind is the only thing we truly own. Therefore, we do not stay where our peace is a constant casualty of another person's storm. We don't argue. We don't explain. We certainly don't beg for them to change. We simply detach. We protect our inner world with the same lethal seriousness a soldier guards a high-value fortress. When someone repeatedly cracks your stability, they have forfeited their right to your presence. The signal is clear. Cut all contact immediately. No more last chances. No more one last talk. Because no wisdom can ever take root in a mind that is perpetually busy repairing the same structural damage caused by the same person. You are not a repair shop for broken souls. Cut the feeding tube. Now, sign 2. The architect of control. There's a darker shadow in the human landscape. The architect of control. This person cannot tolerate your clarity or your independence. To them, your boundaries are an act of war, and your inner peace is a direct threat to their authority. They resort to strategic emotional warfare, blame shifting, the silent treatment, and subtle insults wrapped in the velvet of fake concern. They punish you for the crime of being yourself. Seneca once wrote, "A man is enslaved by anyone he cannot criticize." Critique is the ashes of a tyrant's throne. When someone penalizes your truth, they don't seek connection. They seek a submissive mirror. They use your empathy as leverage, and your loyalty as a weapon. Here is the harshest reality. You cannot reason with a manipulator, because they are not speaking your language. They are calculating your breaking point. The more you try to explain, the deeper they hook into your emotional core. A Stoic does not waste breath fighting a ghost. We win by depriving them of our presence entirely. Walking away is not a surrender. It is the ultimate exercise of power. It is what Marcus Aurelius called choosing not to be harmed. If the door is welded shut, the ghost cannot haunt the house. Owe them no explanation, no final meeting, no slow goodbye. You owe them nothing but your absolute absence. Sever the entire link with surgical precision. Manipulation only works on the available. become ghostware. Sign 3. Corrosive decay. Most damage in a human life is not loud. It does not announce itself with a thunderclap or a cinematic explosion that tells you to run for cover. Instead, it is corrosive. It is a quiet, chemical, molecule by molecule sabotage of your very foundation. You often do not notice the decay until the morning you try to stand tall and realize your inner world has already collapsed under the weight of its own rot. This is the silent killer Marcus Aurelius warned us about in his journals when he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Chaos is a permanent pigment. If you allow a person to introduce constant, unmitigated chaos into your mental space, you are handing them the brush to repaint your entire soul in the dark shades of their personal dysfunction. This is exactly why cutting contact is not an act of emotional revenge. It is a surgical necessity for survival. Stoic researcher Donald Robertson argues that one of the highest forms of self-mastery is the ability to guard the impressions we allow into our minds. This means the people you keep in your immediate circle are never neutral variables. They are either the master architects of your strength or the invisible catalysts of your erosion. The most dangerous person in your life is not the one who insults you to your face. It is the one who subtly, slowly, and systematically rewires your inner compass until you can no longer find north. It starts quietly. You start speaking less freely because you have learned to fear their volatile reaction. You suppress your natural joy because they mock the things that make you shine. Soon, you find yourself walking on psychological glass, terrified that every step, every word, or every mood will ignite their next firestorm of instability. At first, you excuse them. You tell yourself you are being understanding. You rationalize their bitterness by saying they are going through a phase. But inside, your spirit and your ability to stay balanced are fracturing into 1,000 pieces. Epictetus issued a lethal warning about this. If you are not careful, you will become the companion of a wolf. The wolf does not negotiate with the sheep. These wolves do not always snarl at the door. Sometimes they look like partners, lifelong friends, or family members who claim they care about you while they systematically drain your light until you become a dim, unrecognizable version of yourself. A true practitioner of inner discipline understands that anything compromising your peace is ultimately compromising your humanity. The most destructive relationships in history are not the explosive ones with loud arguments and dramatic endings. No, the most lethal ones are the relationships that slowly, quietly, change who you are at the core. When someone makes you feel ashamed of your sensitivity or makes you doubt your own judgment, you are in a state of rapid spiritual decline. We fall to the level of our surroundings. We almost never rise to them. Decline is a fast, grease-slicked slide, while discipline is a steep, exhausting climb. People who corrode your inner world make you fall piece by piece. Your patience, your confidence, your joy, and finally, your sense of purpose. Cutting contact is not an act of abandonment. It is an act of alignment. It is the fierce protection of the integrity of your inner kingdom. Seneca reminds us, a great mind becomes invincible only when it withdraws into itself. This requires the courage to walk alone through the storm, rather than kneeling for a connection that costs you your soul. We fear losing people, but the deeper, more terrifying nightmare is losing yourself while trying to keep them happy. When their presence pollutes your peace more than their absence ever could, the signal is absolute. A stoic heart knows that cutting contact is not an act of cruelty. It is a higher form of love for the person you are fighting to become. You only get one inner world. Guard the gates. Adaptation to rot is just another form of dying. Purge the corrosion before it reaches the core. Sign 4. Betraying your nature. There comes a moment in every person's life, not a loud, cinematic explosion, but a quiet, terrifying fracture inside the chest. It is the moment you realize that the person you have become to keep someone else happy is a person you no longer recognize, respect, or even like. This is the fourth and final warning. It is the realization that someone in your life is forcing you to abandon your own nature. For those of us committed to the Stoic path, our character is our only true compass. Our moral code, our emotional clarity, and our ability to remain grounded are not optional decorations. They are our primary armor. But some people make it impossible to uphold that identity, not by attacking us with swords, but by subtly, daily, and relentlessly pressuring us to betray ourselves for the sake of their comfort. Marcus Aurelius warned us, "The worst harm is done to your soul when you lose the ability to act as your nature demands." A soul in exile is a soul already dead. He was not referring to grand tragedies. He was warning us about the quiet, everyday corruption of the spirit. These are the individuals whose very presence demands that we become someone smaller, someone quieter, someone more apologetic. They don't want your strength. They want your submission. They don't want your clarity. They want a mirror for their own chaos. Stoic scholar William Irvine once wrote that to live a tranquil life, you must protect the architecture of your mind with lethal intensity. But these people specialize in dismantling that architecture, brick by brick. Their expectations crush your authenticity. Their judgment poisons your joy. This is the internal alarm a Stoic never ignores. When someone's influence forces you to act against your core principles, your soul begins to experience a state of moral suffocation. Epictetus famously asked, "When you give up your integrity, what do you have left to defend?" Integrity is the only kingdom worth dying for. Every relationship has one hidden, vital question. Who must I become in order to stay connected to you? If the answer requires you to swallow your truth, silence your voice, or live a life of constant, groveling apologies, then you are not in a relationship. You are in a psychological cage. The darkest damage is not the behavior itself, it is the version of you that the behavior forces into existence. Your nature is the hard-won heritage of every struggle you have ever endured. To betray that heritage for the temporary comfort of companionship is the greatest loss a human being can suffer. It is a trade where you give up your gold for their lead. Seneca once wrote, "Associate with those who lift you higher, withdraw from those who make you fall." But falling is seldom a sudden drop. It happens in micro-betrayals of the self. One day you pretend to be okay. Another day you laugh when you should have stood firm. Another day you apologize for a boundary that was perfectly reasonable. Piece by piece, word by word, your integrity erodes. This is how the self dies, not with a bang, but with a series of tiny, quiet whispers of "it's okay," when it was never okay. A Stoic heart does not rise in anger. We rise in the fierce, cold defense of our natural character. Your clarity is your kingdom, and you are its only king. If a connection costs you your soul, the price is unacceptable. You must find the courage to walk alone through the biting wind, rather than kneeling in the warmth of a house that demands you become a shadow. The path of discipline is a lonely, steep mountain, but the view from the summit is the only air worth breathing. It is time to reclaim the architecture of your mind. It is time to walk away. The crowd will clap for your submission, but the silence will honor your strength. Choose the cold mountain over the warm abyss. Awareness is nothing without execution. If a specific face or name came to mind, your fortress is already under siege. The clock is ticking. Do not pray for a sign from the gods. This is your sign. Cut the connection today. Weld the door shut tonight. Reclaim your will by the morning. If you are ready to stand alone, to protect the integrity of your soul, comment "commanded" below. Let the world know that your character is no longer for sale.